Every city, every location has its own particular smell, and how your character responds to that smell will tell us a lot about it. Welcome to episode 8. I want to develop a little bit more about this tone meeting idea that we discussed a few days ago. If you think about Batman films from, let's say, Tim Burton through Christopher Nolan, very, very different films. Now, there were some similarities. It's very dark, kind of gritty, kind of grimy. Batman, with a few exceptions, is known historically for being dark and dismal. Gotham City is a very dark place traditionally, and that's fine. But if you look at Tim Burton's version versus Christopher Nolan's version, still very different tonally, even if there are similarities. Though they would have had very different tone meetings about these two films. I hope that puts a little bit of clarity on the tone meeting idea. When we talk about tone today, I want you to be thinking specifically about smell. Smell is something that kind of gets doesn't get played with as much, I don't think, in fiction as it could, which is interesting because as human beings, we are very, very motivated by smell. How often have you smelled something that immediately took you back to another time in your life? It could be the smell of peanut butter cookies in the oven, like, oh my gosh, that's just like grandma's house, or, someone's cologne or perfume, like, oh, I had an ex-girlfriend who, whatever. Things like that. Smell is very, very potent. I remember several years ago, I don't remember exactly where I was, but I was in someone's house and their air conditioning kicked on, which happens a lot in Phoenix, and the smell of that particular air coming out of the vents was exactly the smell of my friend Tim's house back in my freshman year of high school. Like, I got one whiff of this particular air conditioning air coming out, and I was like, I am 14 years old, sitting in Tim's living room, ditching biology or whatever. It was the weirdest thing. But I know you've had that experience of smell transporting you, for better or for worse, into another memory, another time of your life. So why not use that very powerful motivator? Why not use that very powerful scent? Here in chapter 2, I've got the city bus smells a little like lavender, body lotion, and pee. Because that just... The thing about a city bus is it can smell like a lot of things. If you've never been on one, give it a shot sometime. Buses have just a very different smell. Your school bus has a very different smell than a city bus, So far in this story, I've only been to about 4 locations. We started in Emily's house, and then we went on the bus, and then we were on a street corner, and then into the carnival itself. Those 4 places are going to have very, very different smells. Just from the street corner into the carnival alone, you can imagine, smelling car exhaust. Or if it's fall, maybe you're smelling... you can sort of quote-unquote smell the coldness in the air, or you can smell the atmosphere, the environment wanting to become cold, but it hasn't quite happened yet. Maybe you're smelling leaves. Every city, every location has its own particular smell, and how your character responds to that smell will tell us a lot about it. You can have a character walk into a kitchen, for example, and smell peanut butter cookies or chocolate chip cookies or whatever, and for most of us, that's going to be like, oh, that's awesome. But maybe for your character, those peanut butter cookies remind her of the time that her dad, was mean to her or whatever. Take it in what sets thou wilt. So you can decide those kinds of things. There are definitely people who have smells that to many of us would be considered good smells or pleasant smells, but their emotional reaction to it is very, very negative. So don't be afraid to play around with that. In any event, using scent, smell, odor, these kinds of things should play into your tone meeting, should play into your setting, making deliberate choices about how you want this particular location, this particular setting to be received by your character, and then how that character is translating that into the audience. Because if you're going to do something like peanut butter cookies, chocolate chip cookies, smell really good, but they make my stomach clench because of this thing, that's an important thing for the reader to know, and an important thing for your character to share. When we're talking about NaNoWriMo specifically, going deep into the senses, you could spend, if you're just trying to get your word count up, you can go through and just do every single sense. This is what it looked like, this is what it sounded like, this is what it smelled like, this is what it tasted like, this is what it felt like. Those are all very different things. Smell and taste, of course, are very closely related. If you've ever held your nose or tried to eat, when you have a cold and you're all stuffed up, things don't taste the same. And in fact, they can even taste like nothing because smell is a huge influencer of how we taste, right? But while we're at the carnival or even on the street corner or whatever, what kinds of things might my characters be tasting versus what might they be smelling? Can you taste car exhaust? I would argue you can. Can you taste fall? Can you taste autumn? I would say yes, you can. Now, maybe for your character, that's going to be, pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks. Great, whatever. Or maybe for your character, it's the taste of those leaves starting to change, or what have you. Use your imagination. But if you're trying to just up your word count for NaNoWriMo, just hit every sense. Spend a paragraph really deep diving your own emotional memory for those things to just bulk up your work. Now, in revision, we may end up cutting a lot of that stuff, but as long as we're doing NaNoWriMo, you may as well jump in and get that kind of stuff in there. In any event, thinking about your setting, don't neglect smell. That's today's lesson. Don't neglect smell. All right? So we're not quite halfway in through NaNoWriMo. Don't give up. Keep writing, because all the writing is good. All the writing is beneficial. All right? We'll see you tomorrow.